Internet. I was going to say good morning. It's not morning. Good afternoon. And good evening and good night, wherever you are. Doing another video response to a comment. Thought I would say hi to the camera first rather than the opposite. So here's a comment from this dude. He says, so this is that video of my pinball machines. The second backhand new hip thing video. So this guy says, and we're talking about the concept that when high level players throw, they're not actually centered completely dead here. They have a little bit of drift from here to there, and we defined that term. This is a Chris Taylor thing as an upside down cone, right? So the top of your cone moves around a little bit. Now you're up to speed. So that's the concept. This guy says hitters in baseball don't do the cone, golfers don't do the cone, Olympic hammer throwers don't do the cone. Why would disc golfers? So first thought, disc golfers don't run around the bases after they throw. Like, it's a different sport. All three of those are different sports. So there's going to be some differences. Like, that's not a fair comparison. Question mark. Then the fact that some high-level pros throw in a cone shape doesn't mean it's the best way. Totally, I agree with that line of reasoning. In fact, a lot of pros have non-optimal aspects to their form. Yeah, like almost all of them. Maybe we'll do a video on that. I have this theory that there's like 9 different ways to generate power. And as long as you have 2 or 3 of them working pretty well, the other ones don't matter that much. So I completely agree with that statement. The reason they throw well despite many having demonstrably non-ideal aspects of their form is that they have millions of repetition with that form to drive consistency. I disagree. I think the reason they throw well, despite having demonstrably not ideal aspects of their form, is that they have some ideal aspects of their form. Like Brody does not have a good brace. I don't think Brody would argue against that. He might now, having watched one of his recent videos. But he doesn't shift his weight well with his lower body. However, his arm timing is very, very, very good, and his swing plane is perfect because he's thrown a million times, more than a million times from Ultimate. So he has the arm stuff figured out. Therefore, his lower body doesn't have to be perfect to be able to hit elite distance. And it's not about the number of repetitions you have. That is a factor, but your form has to be good enough. It doesn't have to be all perfect. Okay, so then he goes on to say that doesn't mean that anyone should teach it to beginners or encourage it in professionals. Yeah, sure. I guess I agree with that. Just because it works for someone doesn't mean everyone should do it. I don't think anyone should throw like Conrad. That's not a repeatable type of form. I don't necessarily think anyone should throw like Matty O, because I think that's a very time-sensitive thing. Like, Matty gets a lot of core compression. He starts high and comes down and releases on plane. A lot of us try to do that. We go high, low, and release. So if your release isn't in right exactly the nice spot, like where Matty gets his, boom, he's going high to low. We usually go high to low to high. So that's like, there's a lot of potential for error built into that, and I don't think anyone should try to throw that way unless it comes naturally to them. So I agree on that point. The most efficient transfer of power will always be via static parallel axes, spine, swing plane, disc axis, which is why no high-level professional coaches in other sports encourage bobbing shoulders. I don't know enough professional coaches in other sports to confirm or deny that. It's mechanically inefficient and decreases repeatability. So, hitters, golfers, Olympic hammer throwers. Let's start there. Baseball. I literally just typed in best slow-mo baseball, and this is what came up. This is from Get Jacked 24/7's channel. He's kind of right up my alley. Okay, so what happens in baseball? There is some extension, so the head is pretty centered, and then after impact, when the bat rolls over, there is backwards motion of the head. So this is kind of a hybrid, right? There's a little bit of forward motion in the head, and then it completely stops. The axis of rotation is entirely around the spine. And then after impact, there's a little shockwave and a little backwards head motion. So that one could go either way. You could argue that they do a cone motion because over the course of the whole swing there is a little bit of a cone motion, but around impact they are not coning, if you will. They are rotating precisely around the spine. I have a theory on that. Here's golf. Just look at where the hat points. Now there's less of that little bounce back effect that we had in baseball because they're swinging something lighter and faster, probably. So he has a little bit of backwards head motion, and then it locks on the ball, hint, and then rotation is pretty much darn near around the spine. So here, put my finger on his hat. Oh, the camera's moving. Come on, guys. Titleist. But his head doesn't move much, right? So, why? Those two are precision sports in a way that disc golf is not a precision sport. We are not swinging a thing. We are swinging ourselves. So, if I'm trying to hit one of these, right, it's like, what, 1.5 inches tall? And I'm trying to hit it with one of these stupid things. I cannot at all afford to do this because it's going to move my targeting sensors all over the place and screw everything up. In this sport, I need these on that 100% of the time. So I cannot possibly afford to move my sensory device. I need to glare at that thing through impact and past impact, and only this is going to bring me up to move my head. So it's different. We don't have to look at the disc when we throw. You know, it's just different. Then baseball, fundamentally the same thing. I'm watching, and I have, I don't know what, like a quarter of a second from when a ball leaves a pitcher's hand to get this thing on target with some of my body weight behind it so that it doesn't get overpowered by a baseball. But it's the same thing. I don't have time to move this. Could you hit a golf ball harder if you Happy Gilmore'd it? Maybe. Like, it'd be stupid, hence it being in a comedy movie. But it might. Yeah, you know, they're different. And the big difference is they have a very long force multiplier with a different amount of mass for each sport. But this changes a lot of things. If I'm primarily swinging a thing, I don't need as much force in my body. I need the force out here. So we kind of want a little more linear projection in our shoulders. Maybe we don't want that. That's what a lot of pros do. They have a little bit of drift forward, right? It's just the way it is. We need more science from Chris Taylor to decide if it's actually best or not. But that's my 2 cents. This gentleman is insane. I haven't actually looked at Olympic Hammer since I learned as much as I know about body mechanics, but oh geez. So, well, I'll just play it once. Oh, I get the whole thing now. And this is from the Olympics channel with only 10.4 million subscribers, so I'm sure they're hurting for views. But go check their channel out because I'm stealing their stuff. So here's Home Dude starting up. He's really going for it. One more and then he throws, I think. 2 more and then he throws. That sport is insane, first of all. Second of all, let's back up and see if we think he's doing an upside down cone or not. Okay, so getting started. Here's his initial, there's his initial pivot. it doesn't really matter where I catch this. The point will be horribly evident. Still on that axis. New foot placement. Oh, missed it. Here, let's go frame by frame. That doesn't work. YouTube is too slow. Internet. Okay, so here's our first still somewhere around there. Coming into his second rotation. There, like that's what I want. So now his primary ground contact is here. This heel is off the ground, so this foot is de-weighting, I believe. And now his center of balance is here. And then as he shifts feet, he again comes back onto that first one. And then spins on that, shifts feet again. That one's more upright now because like maybe he's pumping more. I don't actually know how the physics works on this one, but then he's back to here. Back to the first one. Back to the second one. Back to the first one. And wha-bam, release. Back on the first one again. So if that is not an upside down cone, right, then I don't know what an upside down cone is. So I'm not sure, dear commenter, if we think Olympic hammer throw is a different thing, or if you live in a different version of space-time than I do, but this is absolutely 100% an upside down cone. They are doing it for a different reason than us. Maybe that's what you meant. Don't trip on a golf ball and die. So if you, and this ties into a comment that someone else said too, that like, who was it? I think it might have been Kenneth. But I do this here because it keeps my spine stable and in the same spot. If I go farther, I hit my knee and it hurts really bad, first of all. But second, my head has to move. Now my head is moving up and down and it's bobbing back and forth a little bit. If I go rotationally like that, I have to do the same thing again, and I can't talk like a normal person either. But my head is moving. So right, so if I have room to do this, if I'm spinning around, you should see, I can't see because, can I do that and look at the camera? No, I cannot. But I would assume I am leaning back a little bit, making an upside down cone. So in hammer throw, they have to do that because they're opposing the gravitational rotational force of something very heavy. It happens a little bit in baseball because they lean in a little bit and then they rotate around an axis, and then after impact, when they roll over, they extend backwards a little bit. We saw at least two of the guys hitting do that. So it's a little bit of the same thing. They're just counterbalancing. When we do our cone motion, we're not counterbalancing. We're projecting the shoulders forward more, right? So like shot put, you want to project this shoulder. You want to get here and then project that shoulder forward because you're throwing something. Like if I'm throwing something, I want this to go forward. Upside down cone motion, look at a baseball pitcher. That's a big scoop of a head cone, right? Pitchers do not throw like that. They don't want a central axis because they're trying to project force that way. Having a stick makes it a lot easier to project force from a central axis. We're throwing, so we don't do that quite as rigidly as our dear commenter was saying. So that's my thoughts on that. Thank you so much for listening. See you next time.